Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind the scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. You are now listening to part 2 of this fantastic interview that I did with author and paranormal investigator Steve E. Asher. This was such a fantastic interview, but I had to split it up into 2 parts, which I thought was the best way that you could all have a chance to enjoy all the fantastic stories and first-hand experiences that Steve talked about. So here it is, and please
people that work for
enjoy.
ambulance services, thank God for them. But they to a certain point thrive on misery. It's just a sad part of life. But it's really so strange that, like, I know, like, in your area, obviously you have probably old mental hospitals and things like that. Have you ever been like in this area of the South?
What, in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I've been to Kentucky a few times, and I was there in October in Lexington for Scarefest.
Okay. Now, see, that is extremely cool. But the thing, what you got to remember about Kentucky is, it's like a long shoe. Okay, you're kind of like Lexington. You're looking up top of the shoelaces at the top of the shoe. We're way down in the toes. We're down in toe jam over here. We're way back over here. Western Kentucky is basically Appalachia without that many mountains.
Okay.
It's sort of like we get the last little bit of the sandwich before it comes through Frankfurt and all that, and the larger cities are extremely vibrant and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm dogging where I'm from, but sometimes it can be a hard knock life,
Mm-hmm.
But just like in Appalachia, and what's funny is a lot of the people in Appalachia have similar stories and spooky places and things like that, and hollers, I guess you would call them hollows,
Right.
hollers and this and that, and same thing with Western Kentucky. There's very much of a kinship between those two factions. Most of it's rural, working class, poor
Mm-hmm.
folk, agricultural base, somewhat superstitious,
Right.
clannish. Clannish meaning like group wise, not like with the white hats. Clannish. I'm sure there was some of that too.
You know what? I didn't take it the wrong way. Believe me, I did it. It was like
It was a joke. It was a joke.
I know,
But
but I was thinking. But anyway, keep going. You're
anyway,
wonderful.
but no, I mean, and there's that type of thing when you have. And don't be wrong, there's a lot of very well educated people who keep alive oral traditions, like we talked about. But
Mm-hmm.
there's also that thing where, that's kind of what you got. You do with what you got. It's like people's like, we got to stop coal mining, and people like in this area in Eastern Kentucky is going, please no, we're going to starve to death. We kind of need, if you can find a way to do something different with the coal, please use it because that's kind of our thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's neither good, bad, or indifferent. Again, I'm not getting into
Yeah, no,
politics,
no, exactly. It's
but that's what, that's what we got. And
exactly. That's the reality of your life, but that is what it is.
it is what it is. I mean, and like I said, it's not. I'm not trying to paint it up like it's coal miner's daughter up in here, but it's that, Southern kind of. We don't always talk about certain things, and we like. You ever heard the term "let sleeping dogs lie"?
Yes.
That should be like on our welcome to Princeton. Just whatever
Yeah.
you see, just hush now and forget about it. Which I love my town, but like I said, I've always had a love of it because being kind of on the fringe, you see things differently. And so, but what's so funny now, a lot of the folks I grew up with are the folks that are over parts of town. You just have like X amount of families that kind of control a town. But
Okay.
but I have good camaraderie with these people. I can
Mm-hmm.
pretty much go into their office and go, hey, I need to talk to you for a second. And especially now that I'm writing, um,
Mm-hmm.
because the town's starting to get a little bit of notoriety, I guess by osmosis from dealing with me and this and that, and people saying that. And I mentioned like I've George Coon and library, and I will just throw it out there, and so people go, oh yeah, this is where so and so did this and that, or hey, this is where he's talking about that girl in the well, or this is where he talked about. And because it's so funny because we've had people, I've talked to younger officers because there's wall stands all around the penitentiary. I don't know
Okay.
if you've ever actually seen the penitentiary. It's like it's crazy looking. I mean, it just looks like you built a castle in the middle of
Well,
this
I
little.
mean, I haven't been that one. I mean, I've been to Moundsville, the one in West Virginia. I've been to Eastern State. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot
so
of similarities between that and Eastern State.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and you would have folks that you know are asking. I've had people say, "They're asking about such and such a 5 cell house," and it's like, I really can't discuss it with you, because catch me off. I'm like, hey, if I'm out of my wall stand and walking to my car, you can ask me anything you want. But
Mm-hmm.
and we actually had we have News Channel 6. I think it's WPSD. Sorry, I'm giving them a plug. But they did a interview with me about the penitentiary at just outside the penitentiary, and it
Okay.
was right at shift change, so all the guards are coming out,
Oh.
and they're looking, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get mugged or whatever. But I had people go, "Hey, buddy, seen you on TV, Hollywood," all that kind of stuff. I'm like, stop. But that's something that's really struck me because I never ever expected people to take to it. I didn't expect to sell a book, and again, it's weird. It's sort of like, well, wait a minute, aren't you going to yell at me and stuff? You're used to that, okay, I don't
Right.
know how to take this because this is not what and I'm not saying it like that's all I got, but it's one of those things growing up here, like you said, spirits could not talk. They said in the Bible, said that the dead, either the dead have nothing to say or dead cannot speak. And I was like, well, that's funny. Wasn't like King David call it like the Witch of Endor or
Yeah, no,
something like that?
that's the thing. There's a lot of contradictions sometimes in the Bible about certain things.
Right. And like you said, and I'm well, okay. I'm gonna say this. This is about as controversial as I get. And people say, well, don't you believe in the Bible? I said, which one? I mean, are you talking about the one they changed in Constantinople? Are you talking about the Ethiopian Bible? You're talking about the, you know,
King James
throw,
Version, which one?
throw me a bone, guys. And there's so many stories that come from Egyptian culture, that come from Sumer culture. The holidays of Christmas has got to do with birth dates of other gods, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we even call Jesus the sun, that's connected to like Egyptian, I guess
Yeah.
like Ra
Mm-hmm.
worship. But does that mean I'm not saying that Jesus wasn't there? No, I'm not saying that. Um, like I
But
said, this is the sort of conversations that kept me out of the good schools. You know, um, that and I was a horrible student.
let me
Um,
ask something, Steve. Did you ever have any of the prison inmates ever tell you, not, you know,
oh,
because you were writing a book, but what, the time that you were working there, saying, man, there's something in here, or I heard something, or I saw
I'm,
something?
I'm sorry, I was laughing because I was going to say, Steve, have you ever had Ritalin? No, I never had Ritalin. Might have helped, but yes, there were some times where there was a cell. Okay, let me explain this. Lord, this is crazy. Okay, you take a box. Okay, take an animal cage. It's a bad analogy, but it fits. You
Okay.
take an animal cage. You can put little sections in it to where if it needs to be slightly smaller to fit a smaller dog.
Okay.
Okay, or you can move some of the little dividers out of it if you have a
Mm-hmm.
larger dog as they grow. Well,
Okay.
when they built the penitentiary, cells only had to be, I think, 4 foot by about the size of a closet, 4 foot by maybe 5 foot,
Wow.
and yeah, and usually those were double or triple bunked.
What?
Yeah, it was like a Japanese hotel where like you go into a little pod, except buggery and stabby people. But um, there had been one that had been moved out or had been altered because back in the old days they didn't have heat, like modern heat. They didn't have modern plumbing. They used to would have, you would have your little poo bucket and you'd hand it to the, or dump it into the thing, and then it would go out.
Right.
So I was talking to a guy, and this one guy kept having his count come wrong. Counts are very big. Counts are way up there. Like, yeah, showing up for work, making sure your counts are straight, no one is stabbed. They can tell you this is your duties. A 500-page list. That's the basics. You show up for work.
Right.
You make your rounds, do your counts, hope to keep somebody from getting stabbed. Don't get stabbed. Don't cause a stabbing. Because I've seen that too. But
Wow.
anyway, we kept having these problems with his count. Well, captain or sergeant come up, old guy, and he come up there, kind of one of those. Did you ever see? Was it Cannonball Run? Had Jackie
Yes.
Gleason in it. The
Yes,
guy's
I
like,
remember
I
that
get home,
movie.
I'm gonna punch your mama in the mouth. That guy.
Yeah, I remember that.
looked-
My
he
God.
looked like-
Yeah, you
he
know,
looked
child
like
of my loins or something like that. Yeah.
There's no way you'll come from my loins. Yeah. He come up there, and that's one of the bad things about prison. A lot of times, there's not a lot of activity, but when it is activity, it is blowing up.
Oh,
So a lot
wow.
of times, guys, sit around, drink coffee, eat a donut, smoke a pack of cigarettes at the end of the night. They kind of get that spread, and they get out of shape. Well, anyway, he come up there, and he was looking around about this and that, and they kept having problems with it. And he said, I was having this wrong count. I don't know what is going on. Well, I'm getting wrong count. I'll make a round, and then my counts keep being off so often. I don't know if somebody's able to get up out from under a cell, if they're hiding. Well, and they said, which walk is it on? It was on E walk. Okay, the way cell walks are set up, you walk onto an open hallway. To the left, there's what they call A and B walk, which has two cells that face each other. You go down about 10 feet. There's C and D walk, which has two cells looking at each other.
Okay.
And then you have E walk, which is a single walk that faces out toward the wall. A lot of times there's murals painted of different places, and it kind of gives them something to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a single walk, and usually that's a meritorious walk. If you're a kitchen worker, if you're somebody that needs some quiet to get up early for work, a lot of time the old timers are there.
Uh-huh.
Well, come to find out, he was going back to the cells, and he was counting. He said, was this one here? And he's like, and the guy says, no. He says, no, it's like, count it back up. It's like a fourth or fifth one in. He said, you're talking about 16 or 15? And he said, no, there's not that many cells. He says, no, there's that cell. And he says, no, come here. And he shows them, and it's an air vent. It's where they put one of the housing for the air conditioning. They seen this guy because he'd come up. He would do the count. The inmate would stand there, have his ID, and he would go back to his cell. Never said a word. And he said, no, man, there's not been an inmate in this cell since like 1940.
Ooh.
And I talked to one of the janitors. I won't say his real name. He went by the nickname Love Kills, and I'll tell you that great story in a moment.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna do a pop-up book of all these. It's great.
It's just gonna be a runaway bestseller.
It's it. I'm telling you, I jokingly people say, well, why don't you put this on television? I'm like, man, I don't know if they want to see this on television. Some of it's pretty raw, and he was like older black fella, and he was from Louisiana. God dang, talking like that, and I was like, hey, I said, why don't you tell me what's going on? Which when he was off work, he was like, well, I tell you, it's like he had that crazy kind of, hey, buddy, what's going on? All this and that persona on the yard. And he says, because people leave him alone, they think he's crazy. It makes sense. Well, anyway,
I get it. I mean,
well, you find what works for you in that environment. It's a defensive mechanism. But he says, oh yeah, no. I said, I've been here since the late middle 60s or something. He says, I remember them talking about it when I come in here. And I was like, well, what happened? And he says, well, there had been a guy in there, and I guess they were fighting over somebody getting a cell. And I think the guy died, got killed in there. And oh no, what it was, they were going to move him because they were going to put in new venting. They were going to move him out of
Okay.
there, and apparently something happened and he died or some sort of situation. I'm blanking at the moment. I apologize.
That's
But
okay.
and he said, yeah, he said, but people still hear that guy walking around in that cell, even though there's nothing there.
Exactly. And that's the thing for anybody that came after the fact that had no idea that at one point that had been a cell.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, because the standards change, and they take into consideration you can't do certain things with a solid stone building.
Mm-hmm.
Prefab stuff you can kind of do a little bit with them, but you have a
Yeah.
5 or 6 floor facility, or a big building, you got what you got. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and because I said that's really strange. And then he's another one of the guys I asked about I talked about C&D walk. There's a shower, and you would feel somebody there, and you kind of look, you don't really see anything. Well, you walk down the way the cell walks were. You walk all the way down past the 17 or 18 cells. There's a fire door. You wiggle the handle, make sure it's okay. Then you turn back up, walk back up the walk. Well, as I was down there by the fire exit, I kind of was getting ready to turn. I thought I saw something like a shadow or something shoot from the open doorway into the hall into the shower. I'm like, First I thought, well, maybe a captain or somebody snuck in. They always like to, because I worked a lot at midnights. I was thinking, he's going to try to play with me and try to scare me coming out of the cell. Okay. And I'm starting to kind of walk back up. And so I'm watching it. Well, then I see another, like a shadow, but it was more distinct because it was almost like, wow. Okay. Take a shadow off the wall that doesn't like the wall. And like if there's like if you have like say you have a box on a wall, a
Right.
shadow's going to go across it, but it's going to warp differently. This didn't do that, and this thing was like off the ground. It like hovered through the air. So then I hear some mumbling and grumbling and almost like somebody getting slapped.
Uh-huh.
So I run up because what else? That's my exit. I have to run up there. I have my mag light. You don't have Kentucky State Penitentiary. You don't have weapons. You don't have sticks, and you don't have all this and that. You have a radio,
Wow.
and your wits for the most part. Now they do issue you about an 8 battery mag light. It's an old school mag light. It's metal.
Uh-huh.
You know what? That's your flashlight. God forbid somebody comes up on you and it swings at you. You have what they call reactive physical force, and if you swing away, that's on them. Penitentiary life. That's all I'm saying. It's brutal, but I ran up there, didn't see anything. And when I spoke to Love Kills about that, he had mentioned that there was an older inmate, kind of a granddaddy type. Okay, granddaddies were kind of the guys that ran. You ever heard of shot callers? Guys that kind of like run the walks. You may not be familiar with that term.
No, but I mean, I understand the
You get
concept
it,
though.
right? Right. Which if you have a good strong granddad on the walk,
Mm-hmm.
generally you don't have a problem because he's like, you guys keep it down, or when we're on the yard, it's gonna be a problem. And they go, okay. So made our jobs easy as long as they weren't mistreating anybody. They just were very strong inmates.
Okay.
That's just the nature of the penitentiary. But yeah, he had told me that apparently something had happened, and the guy chased him in there. I don't know if the guy slipped or whatever, but he ended up cracking his head really bad, and I think he died.
Ooh.
And that just would happen. It seemed like it would happen a lot when it was storming, which
Really?
electromagnetic energy,
Uh-huh.
which I always talk to people about. They says, well, any kind of hokey that they're saying this. And I was like, no, think about it. It was a dark, stormy night. It was this and that. It
Yeah.
wasn't just for atmosphere, but it was literally for atmosphere. Even that movie, what's it called, Ghost Story?
Mm-hmm.
The girl appeared in the snow. We're all interconnected. We try to act like we're up here, but we're still
Yeah.
in the mire with everything else. We're just animals that,
Invented
whatever.
fire.
Invented fire, and we probably just tripped over and happened to
Well,
find
not
that.
invented it, but harnessed it anyway.
Right. And, because like I said, there's animals that obviously can use tools. And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, doesn't dolphins have like a larger cerebral cortex than we do?
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Mm.
and so for us to think that we've
Oh yeah.
um, got this all figured out is pretty arrogant. But
Ooh, absolutely not.
no, but not like I said, but yeah, Love Kills is one of those guys.
What?
If you, I'll tell you the story. Um, and this is kind of not, I know it doesn't so much have to do with spooks, but it's pretty spooky.
Okay.
So I talk to him, and I speak like he speaks, and please don't take it as I'm doing it in some sort of racial thing. This is just how he spoke,
That's how
and
he spoke.
that's how he spoke. And I was like, I have to ask you. He said, yes, young man. He said, why do they call you Love Kills? He says, there's two things in life I love, Officer Asher. And I said, what is that? And he said, beautiful women. I said, okay, I can see that. He says, and crack cocaine. Okay. I said, yeah. I said, so is it like it's one or the other? So are together? He says, oh no. That's what got me in here. He said, when I do that cocaine, I get choky. I get
Oh.
choky. And I went, oh no. He said, yeah, that was no good. And I said, no, sir. I said, women are all right. Just leave that other stuff alone. He said, oh, if I ever get out of here, I will. When I first come on the yard, he was a tool used by the penitentiary. When you walk into that yard, first thing he goes, look, it's some new Klansmen. That was the exact thing he said. First thing he said at me, look at that new Klansman. And I'm looking at my shoulder like, where? I'm already joking back with him.
Uh-huh.
Because some people just looked at the ground and were scared, and then we went, oh, we can have fun with that one. So I just started popping back, and he'd be like, says, where's your hood? I said, I'm getting it pressed. And he laughed, and it just like, okay, and he left me alone. And ever since then, we had this weird back and forth. I know it sounds so
No, I know, but he
but
knew that you had figured him out. So it's like,
he knew. I never missed a beat on his rap, and like I said, where I was born, before we were living in county, for first few years, I lived in what was considered Black Town. Okay, there's a section. It's sort of its own little area. It's changed a little bit, and more people live together. But back at the time, it was just about the time when they were started to desegregate schools. And so anyway, I grew up with a lot of black folks, and it was just folks were folks. And so like if I'm like, if I say words like, I'm hip to this or I'm hip to that, or you're in the cut on this, I come by that genuinely. I'm not trying to sound like this and that. But like I said, I was used to people cutting heads like that. So when I just started bopping back at him, he was like, oh, okay. He did not expect this little fat bald guy to kind of be coming back at him like that. But he could tell it was with good spirited stuff. But it was so strange that there you have moments. You have moments like that. It's not all nightmares, because people hang themselves every day in there. You have to make jokes. You have to make a game of it. And even because like I said, I know when they were talking about, no, it's okay. Mine's the same way. But yeah, it's just that thing, you if you don't, what's I was saying, if you don't laugh, you cry. And that's not even talking about the paranormal aspect of it, which is very very prevalent there. But I was going to tell you, because we talked about the penitentiary, we talked about the asylum, the orphanage that we were talking about,
yes.
book 3. We actually got to investigate that.
Really?
Yes. And yeah, we just got really weird stuff. We had some remotes or voice activated recorders set up. So we went and did this and that, and we said we had a couple guys that smoked that was on the team, and I was like, no, we are not smoking inside. It's going to make all kinds of crazy pictures. So we had everything else locked up. We've already did a full sweep, and we put a thing in the hallway. Okay, there is like a side A and side B. There's a common area that the people, I call them kids, a lot of them were children, and some were special needs adults. And because the building had different lives as it went. But these people could sit in the common area and watch television. Well, we left a recorder close to where they used to keep toys and balls and all that.
Okay.
And from what I remember, there was nothing like that there because basically they moved all the people out. There was still like a lot of old medical files scattered around. It looked like an old haunted asylum, you know. So it had the look. I mean, it was like right out of casting. I mean, it looked right. Some lights were flickering. I'm like, Jesus. So we went outside and let these guys blaze up. So we talked for a few minutes. Well, we come back, and I see that it's showing that it was recorded something. So we're listening
Okay.
back to it, and you hear like, or you know how like when say you're hearing a car coming down the road.
Right.
First it's like a little distant, and then coming the music's loud, and then it fades off
Uh-huh.
again. That Doppler effect, right?
Yes.
I think it's what it's called. Well, you could hear kind of like a clop clop, clop clop, like someone's like a kid, you know, almost like they're running around with like a little broom or something, like they're trying to be a cowboy or something back in the
Uh-huh.
day. You would hear that, but it sounded like they had a ball, like a
Mm.
plastic tonk tonk like sound with a skipping. There weren't any balls there, and there weren't certainly any children there. Um, so come to find out, we were talking to one of the people who had worked there. I said, "Don't tell us about anything. Let us discover what we discover." Now they made one mention about there was a nun
Okay.
that had died. She was burnt to death, I think,
Wow.
and this is way before anything like the Insidious movies and stuff. So don't go, oh, you're taking a nun thing. No, 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 this is way before that. But
Mm-hmm.
there was this like black form of nun, kind of like the thing that I saw.
Okay.
Now there's a curse connected with this. I
Really?
know, sounds very Scooby Doo, but there's a curse connected to it. And they said that if you happen to see that, don't chase after it. I'm like, not a problem.
Nope.
You
Got it.
got you got my 100% support in that. So so anyway, and I said, well, just curious, why? He says, well, there was one woman who had seen him and just thought somebody had gotten to the building and was running down there, was trying to kind of get after him and ended up following him out into a hallway and it went through a wall. Okay. Okay. And I said, what's that got to do with it? I says, well, there's another guy who was an electrician and did the same thing, and he developed like a really bad some sort of kind of like a cancer, but it was like really
Wow.
extremely rare, and then it was just really weird, and he died like really fast, like died within 6 months. And they said, oh, well, that's unfortunate. He says, well, they actually both died within 6 months of seeing this thing. And I
Oh.
said, oh, so you're saying don't chase it because it's got a weird
Yeah.
voodoo curse thing next to it?
Yeah.
And they said, as silly as it sounds, yes. And I went, yeah, it's not a problem. But come to find out about the Skippy Hoppy thing, there had been a girl, young woman, and she had obviously diminished capacity. She was special needs, pretty profoundly so. But one of the things that she loved to do was hop around and skip through that hallway.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, that's weird. Well, we had another bit of phenomena because they had these half walls that would kind of, I guess, to damper some of the television sound going down the halls. And I was like, I could swear I'm seeing like a little shadow or something. There's no light source over there. Like something's like peeking and putting their head back and just like looking, and they put their heads back behind the wall. And I said, I'm sure it's me. I'm sure it's me, right? Well, I told them that we were here, and I said it was right before we went out and did the break. And she said, well, the same girl, a lot of times she would play hide and go seek behind that, and then she would go. And I said, well, that's weird. Why are we seeing her if they were transported? And she said, well, that particular girl died here.
Oh.
And I went, yeah. That's like her facial
It was
reaction.
like, okay.
Right. I'm like, oh, come on. I'm like, come on.
This is not.
Seriously. And
That's
so that was
much.
one of the things that really struck me. I was like, the fact that we got stuff that kind of coincided with all this.
Right, and without you knowing
Right.
that
And
of
and
all
that's
the.
why, because I knew, I was like, well, did they tell you about it? Well, yeah. Well, then you're reading into it. That's why I'm like, short of like, this is
Exactly.
dangerous, or there's a reason I'm telling you not to go here. Be careful what you do here. I mean, because we'd had, and like the metal doors you can open has
Mm-hmm.
magnets on the wall. We had them slam open, close. Um, then we heard a little boy said, "I want to go home," and we had physically heard things, kind of like muttering, but then we listened to the EVP. Yeah, not cool, but we listened to the EVPs, and then you would hear like, "I want to go home," or "It's cold here," or something like that.
Oh man.
We went into the building, which it was called this Father Higgins Learning Center,
Okay.
and good, like I said, good people. Sometimes hauntings happen in the most genteel places.
Right.
But so I was looking at this room, and I wasn't sure whose it was, and I had a voice recorder, and I said, "Does anybody know who lived here, or who was over this?" And I was talking about the room, and okay, I'm gonna do my best impersonation. I'm okay on voices. I'm not the best, but I've already did an impersonation with a black guy, and I'm gonna do one of an Irish guy. You could hear a guy saying, "It was the Father's building," like he's whispering, like, "It was the Father's building,"
Oh
and it
my
wasn't
God.
like you would think it would be, "Oh, hello, Father," but it said "Father," and I'm
Right.
like, and apparently certain people inflect that way and say "Father" instead
Oh
of
my God.
"Oh, freaking," was crazy, because once we found that, I showed the person that got us in there, and they said, "Dude, that's crazy." They did not know the person personally, but they said, "Yeah, that was his office." And she even had like parents, grandparents that knew, I guess, of the people that were there, and he said what they knew, he did have a very, type
Pronounce.
of sound, very distinctive bro, or whatever you call it, and like I said, I mean, there was other kooky stuff that happened in there. I mean, you'd have, like I said, when we was upstairs looking around, which is where supposedly the nun was at, you would have people moving up, sound like up down the stairs. We looked down there, there's nothing there. We'd be at the bottom of the stairs. After that, you'd hear somebody walking up the stairs. Look, there's no one there. There was heat on, so it's not like the house was popping and creaking under the code.
Mm-hmm.
We would get some temperature spikes in certain areas when there's activity, but not all the time. So, and would that do that all the time? I don't know, because we only got to investigate it one time, because it was in the processes of being bought out by a private company.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kind of got in there like under the wire. We were not trespassing, but it was a thing. It was like, okay, we only have this building for a few more days before their ownership gets over it. There's not any patients here, so go for it. And so yeah, that was.
And were they going to keep the building, or were they going to demolish it and build something else?
Well, actually, there's a guy who bought the building and turned it into a car shop. And I was speaking with him initially, where they do strip cars down, or not strip cars down, like repair them and whatnot, paint them and such. Well, the lady that had got us in there before said, "Oh, I know the woman and her husband who bought the place. They didn't know anything about the history, but they were talking about while they were gutting it, they were getting all kinds of activity."
I bet.
And I went, "Really?" Right? So I'm like, so I try to talk to the guy, but he was very like, "Oh, I'm a writer." He's thinking, "Great, I'm going to be in a book, and there's going to be people here all the time." Yeah, he's just trying to tell me, he says, "This is not a fit. I'm not. Don't reprint anything I'm telling you." He said, "But yeah, we've heard this and we heard that," and I've tried to get in touch with him. I would love to have done a second walkthrough.
Exactly.
But it wasn't meant to be. But the grounds stuff at the grounds are still the grounds. Just close to there had been, because this is Western Kentucky, there's cornfields and this and that everywhere. And there had been a little boy. It wasn't on the property. Apparently he was with his father. I think the mother had passed, so it was one of those, depression, Dust Bowl era stuffs.
Right.
And the boy had apparently been ill, and a lot of times along big stretches of farmland, they'll have like maybe a well house or a little place where people can go in there and maybe clean up, or if there's like, well, hey, we're going to be finishing this in the morning. There's no point in driving all the way back home on a horse. It's going to take you 6 hours, or how long it takes you. We'll crash here. Almost like a little hunting lodge.
Right.
Little boy had been very sick, and he stayed on the porch. Usually he would ride with his dad. And he said, well, here, son, here's some water, and just you rest, and I'll check on you every so often. And he would make it by, as he's going circles. But he's starting to get a little bit further out, so it takes him a little bit longer. Well, he was doing some work, and it was starting to get kind of twilight. And you knew it'd be pretty close. It was the sun was starting to settle. And certain parts of Western Kentucky, it's hilly, and so the lights hits behind the trees, the sun's gone. So and it may not necessarily be sundown, but it's coming. So he was doing that, and so he was trying. He kind of glanced behind him to look back at the thing to make sure he was still doing okay. And well, he turned back up. Just he had a thresher, a corn thresher, just in time to see the top of the little boy's head, his hair. And the thing about those machines, you can't just go click, especially those old ones, and stop it.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I know. I'm sorry, I tell horrible stories, but the boy had a small caboose, not his caboose, but like a little toy caboose.
Uh-huh.
And I guess it was from his mom, and he was trying to shut the machine that the dad was, and it's still spitting some corn off into the little feeder behind it because that's where the corn goes. So he's up there and he's trying to pull through it, and he's thinking, man, maybe he slid up under it, or maybe so he's trying to pull ears of corn, and he's starting to see some streaks on some corn, and it's starting to get, and corn's got blood splatter on it, and so he gets it, and he picks up that little caboose, and it's just gnarled, blood soaked, and obviously he digs down about another 5 or 6 layers of corn, and there's that boy.
Oh.
But the thing was, he couldn't understand why he was out in that field.
Right.
And he said the boy hadn't smiled since his mama had passed, and he had thought for some reason that either the boy thought he saw his mama out in that field,
Right.
whatever, and he walked out to her, and then it's almost like whatever it was walked it in front of that, and it killed him. And people will still say they will hear the screams of that kid out in that field.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I did not hear the screams, but because that was such a crazy story, I had to put it in that third book. That's a little peek at that.
Oh,
Weird, right? Sad.
oh my God.
You're like, I don't want to talk to this guy again. I'm gonna have to get on meds. I can't even. He's such a.
You know what? But it's good. It's good. It's like, no, but yes, but no, but yes.
Well, no. I mean, like I said, and you know what? Honestly, and I joke about children's parties and stuff, but in the future, I will write some children's books about special needs children, and they have, how people maybe see a kid and say, well, I don't know if I can play with these things. These kind of different, and where you see where these kids aren't all, kids are kids.
Of course.
It doesn't matter what your condition is or what your language is. You put a kid from Russia and China and whatever, Newfoundland and America, and in a pile with like some dump trucks, and they'll be making truck noises or little, or whatever, playing with dolls, whichever what they want to play with. But so I don't want everybody to think I'm just this guy that brings nightmare stories. I don't want to be that guy. But my daughters, they go, "So writing a new book, Dad?" Yeah. I said, "Killed any kids yet?" I said, "No, but it's early."
They got
and it's kind of a jab, but I'm like, guys, it's one of those. You ever heard like the guy, like somebody's like drinking tequila or something? There's no good story ever started with drinking tea or something, or drinking water.
Yeah.
There's going to be some hairy stuff to get to this other stuff, and
Yeah.
These aren't kids. I'm not killing these kids. They're stories. They're brought to me. But
I've just got to include them.
well, no, it's just, but they're compelling.
No, I know, I understand. And you know what? Whether there's true or there's urban myths, but still, it's not far fetched in the sense of
Right.
horrible things like that did happen.
Well, I'm blanking on the writer, but I think he said, it was talking about characters, and he said, in books, kill your darlings. Because not all stories end. Not all
Yeah.
stories end with rainbows and all that. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but true. It is.
And like I said, you're generally not going to have. It's like, oh, this person had a charmed life, and this and that, and he had ice cream every day. Generally, you're going to have some sort of neglect or thing that causes that. But okay, back to that little discussion about the YouTube show. One of the things I talk to people about, I know I'm all over the map, I apologize, is other than talking about urban legends, I might go, hey, what's something that scared you when you were small, or something that stuck with you that was not necessarily got to be horrific? It could have been anything. You could have watched, good Lord, trying to think of something from back in the day, like the SUBSTACK scared me when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
Freaking SUBSTACKs, right? They had me on the ropes. They scared the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of stayed with me. Just like, okay, what's something that scared you? Well, I saw, okay, like Old Yeller, that movie, the dog got put down. Sorry, spoilers. Dog got put down.
That's,
And, well, I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian. I took that fear because I don't want to see a little animal die. So it's not always something that it cripples you. Sometimes it pushes you on to do
oh, of
something
course.
positive.
Of course. Everybody's affected differently. And
Right.
somebody,
And
it's
so that's
like,
what
I can't walk away from this and forever be afraid.
right. And like I said, and sometimes fear is not always bad. Fear
No,
is there for a reason, that protects us, but also it sometimes that stuff burns into your synapses, and you're there and you're going, that will not ever happen. I will get my
yes,
life's ambition to minimize that as much. Maybe somebody had a son or a brother that died of a rare ailment. I'm sure the guy that discovered polio had some family that was like that, and he was
of
like,
course.
okay, I've killed the monster.
Yeah,
That's an admirable thing, but it was based on fear. It was based on something bad. So, um, like I said, I'm weird. I'm that guy. I'm a centralist. Like I said, I, I think people are dualistic. I think you have to embrace the. I don't want to say embrace the bad as embrace the good, but you have to recognize it, that it's there.
of
And
course. Like I said, well, and you made a good point. Some people, it depends on how they handle fear.
right. Well, everyone processes it different. Some people don't process it at all.
Oh, I
Some
know.
people just can't.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember too, and I don't talk a whole lot about like my son's passing, but it
Mm-hmm.
was hard. I will say that, and I had to do CPR on him until they got here.
Wow.
And out of that, as much as I hated it, um, we decided to do organ donation, and he had saved the lives of 6 other people. And in that way, he's a hero, which he was a hero to me either way. But
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those things where you had to make something positive out of something negative.
Yeah.
It's just how it was. Something else had happened, and I really kind of chafe on saying it, but I'm going to say it because it's what happened. When after his death, my little feelers, or what do you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
really amped up. I don't know what it is. I don't know,
Okay.
because I was so close to a death situation.
Okay.
But it really amped up for a while, and I really had to kind of not get involved with much stuff like that, because I'm sure there's a certain amount of PTSD involved, and
Sure. Yes.
and all that. But you know, um, the first book, I don't know if you looked in the inside. I've always tried to dedicate my books to my family and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a little part where I said, to Kaylee and Joseph, I hope to, if there's something there, because I'm kind of an agnostic, and I said, hopefully I will see you on the other side. That book of being written and edited was in the moments in leading up to his death, and through
Wow.
that process of burial, and the process of having them cross the street. You can't hug your child right then, because they're being prepared.
Wow. That's.
Dark, gnarly stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to process it.
Of course.
And the books in a lot of ways saved my sanity. If I am, well, if you say you're not insane, then you are insane. Is that how that works?
Well,
But
no, and you and I'm. It's I. can understand exactly what you mean, Steve. That book, but like you were saying, that this is. I'm sure that there were moments, and I'm guessing, but that maybe in spurts where maybe when you were writing, you were able to kind of forget for a moment. Like almost like distract yourself for a little bit in order to engage back again and handle what was
100%.
in front of you at that time.
100%. Because and this is like a very special episode of this thing, but it's like my daughters didn't quite get it, and it's not that I wasn't feeling it because I was crying every day, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like I have to busy my hands or I'm gonna
Exactly.
lose
Yeah.
my mind.
Yes.
This is not child one that we've lost. This is a second child we've lost,
Exactly.
and it and about did me in, but it was a thing of going. What's the other thing? Get busy living or get busy dying. Again, I'm a movie file, so I'm gonna throw
Mm-hmm.
everything as a movie
Mm-hmm.
reference,
Right.
and that's very true though. Um, you know, that's just the nature of it. Try to make it as good and to keep the memories as pure and real as you can, and go with it and take it as a treasured moment. That's all you can
Yes.
do. But like I said, I'm sorry I didn't mean to get off
No,
really
no,
deep
no,
like
no.
that. But
That's quite understandable.
yeah, I mean, I
Well, so
think that
there's, I mean, because what you're in reality, what you're telling me is almost like the backstory of what was going on with you while you were writing that book. I
right. Well,
mean,
and that's why that's why I write a lot now. I mean, like I said, getting 3 and 4 done, starting on 1 and 2 of the what will be the possibly a trilogy or a 4-part
okay,
story about this area, and
okay,
I've got stuff I want to write about legends, urban legends, stuff about folklore, weird superstitions like around here. Like we used to have things like you always lift your feet up when you go over a county line, different things like that.
okay.
Um, I want to touch on some cryptid stories. I want to touch on people talking about speaking with family, that because that's kind of personal to me. Speaking with family across the veil,
Mm-hmm.
uh, angels, things like that. Connections between aliens and um, ghosts.
Yeah.
A lot of the ways they work are the same. They'll come in and out of walls. A lot of times they'll, you know, uh, sometimes people are levitated. Sometimes people, have lost time. The
Well,
paralysis in the beds.
I mean, there's even people that they've noticed like a spike in paranormal events dovetail with an increase in UFO sightings. So,
Okay. All right. I do not know how much time we get, but I'll tell you one more
no, go
thing.
right ahead.
And this is kind of personal. Um, the thing that, like I said, I saw the really creepy thing when I was, I don't know, 10ish. No, probably no more older than 12.
Okay.
Me and sadly the same little boy.
This
He would
poor kid.
not sleep in the house, but we had gotten a little tent, and so we would camp outside, and we'd have like the little fire pit, was made of bricks and kind of like a horseshoe pattern, and we'd cook
Uh-huh.
hot dogs on it with a like a. We didn't have a grill top. We took like an old refrigerator. Remember the
Like,
old refrigerators had the metal ones?
yeah.
I was that kid that you always had that one black fork because you're always cooking your hot dogs over the thing. Okay, anyway, you remember.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so we were out there and we were just sitting there watching the moon, just because it was a full moon. It's beautiful. Well, I'm not going to tell you that I encountered an alien. I'm not going to say that I saw a spaceship. I
Okay.
saw something moving across right to left. The clouds, for whatever reason, were going left to right, and I just thought, well, that's really weird. It must be a weird airflow to cause that cloud to go an opposite way of these other clouds.
Right.
But and it was a grayish cylinder, like kind of cigarish, but it was smoother. It was like but thicker. It was hard to describe.
Okay.
And it went, and I'm thinking, well, that's a really weird cloud. I don't know why it's going that way. And I'm thinking, okay, it's starting to hit the moon, and so it disappears. I'm thinking, oh well, the moon's very bright. You'll see it through the cloud, I guess.
Right.
Must not be a very thick cloud. Well, this thing, let's say the moon was a half dollar.
Okay.
This thing was probably 4 to 5 inches. It was pretty big, and so it was going, and I'm like, I'm waiting for it to come through show the other side of it, and it never did. And I'm like, that's just so weird. And the only thing I could assume, whatever it was, kind of went like toward the edge of the moon and turned and went straight in behind the moon, like it, and it just went. And we sat there for like 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm like,
How could something disappear? Like,
because I'm asking myself, so, did you see something up there? And he said, yeah, it's almost like, he said, it was like a cigar or like a, just something. It was weird. It wasn't lit up. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't like V. There weren't people peeling their faces off that were lizards. None of that junk. None of that happened. But we seem to have lost a little time.
whoa.
Not a lot of time, but some. And that's as exciting and sexy as that story gets. There was nothing. We weren't probed.
Let me
There
tell
was
you
nothing
something though, but that's enough. Like, see,
I
that's
don't
what I'm
bring that
talking
up
about.
much. And I know it sounds so hypocritical. Like, I'll talk about ghosts and spooks and boogers or what do you want to call them, but alien stuff. Come on, I don't want to look nuts. I don't mean it to sound like that, but it's like I know I have some understanding about this and that, and fire in the sky and the Roswell stuff and Rendlesham Forest and a lot of the UFO related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not a ufologist.
No.
I'm not that guy. I dance around it, but I don't know. I don't feel knowledgeable enough to really speak on a lot of other people's stuff. And I understand that, like you said, it seems sometimes when
Yes.
that happens, things happen. I've heard a bit about people talking about like the Mothman thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you have something crazy happen and then all these bad things happen, or then people start talking
Right, the
about lights in the
sightings.
sky. Again, my friend who lives in Arizona, a little place called Bullhead,
Okay.
Arizona. It's a little bitty tiny place. It talked about, how they had like the lights over Arizona and stuff, or lights over Phoenix.
Yes.
Apparently, I think they were able to see it from there and stuff. And they talk about that kind of stuff, because, in those areas, you have reservations and stuff. So they talk about skinwalkers and they talk about this and
Yes.
that. To me, that's so interesting. It's just I've not really physically felt or dealt with that I know of. I even had people say, what about what was the thing? Regression therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk about some stuff? Because I have some memories of things, but I don't know if it's a screen memory. I don't know if it's this or it's that. And I know this may knock my cred down, but what cred I've got. But it's just one of those things. It is interesting, and it's the fact that it's stuck with me all these years. It makes me wonder, well, why does that stick with me like it does?
Okay.
So
Well,
could be
what kind of
nothing.
memory is it? Because I did hypnotherapy for many years. I was a hypnotherapist for many years. What
Okay,
is it that you're talking about?
I had this weird. It was a dream. As far as I know, it's a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were living, me and my brother, Michael, were in a house, but it was sort of like a thatched type walls, almost like where you kind of tie hay together or tie straw together, and the walls were kind of like not quite like a Gilligan's Island house. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't have that type of roof with palm leaves, but it was like almost like a tarred type grassy thing, so to kind of keep it watertight.
Yes.
Well, for whatever reason, I was on a little cot, and I heard this beating and banging, and so I jump out of bed. I go to the back. It's not exactly a window. It's kind of like you can push it up and put like a little stick that holds it up.
Right.
Ventilation. I don't know if that was something that was happening like 9th, 10th century, but it's kind of the time period it felt.
Mm-hmm.
Europeanish stuff,
Right.
And so I see my brothers down there, and these things are fighting them. I couldn't quite make it out. They were very large and black. The only reflectiveness that they gave off was a very dark purple, almost like a negative of something.
Okay.
But instead of it being like black and white, it was black and purple, which was strange, obviously.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to help my brother. For whatever reason, I'm a really good brother because I'm wanting to run out there and help him fight these 7 foot, 8 foot tall, almost Bigfootish looking, but they almost seemed transdimensional, like they can kind of come and go.
Okay.
And so I go out the back little door, with the little wooden latch, and I push it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of looked through the little peep area or a little crack in the thing. I didn't see anything, and so I pushed it and immediately turned to my brother to the left. By doing that, I did not watch the steps that are in front of me, and something comes out from behind the door. It's one of these things, and it jams me in my right leg. And the thing is, it wasn't a dagger, it wasn't a anything like it. It was a long, really clean, like super shiny, like shinier than it should have been,
Okay.
almost like stainless steel implement into
Uh,
my leg. But it was almost hot. It was almost like a core, like you would take a core sample or something.
right, right.
And so it got me in my leg, and it stunned me. It made it like totally immobilized my leg. So I fall back. I roll back into the corner. I remember I hit like a wicker or like a handmade basket. I knock onions and potatoes, and they fall all over me and stuff. And I remember trying to get the dust and the skins off me from the onions. I mean, it was extreme. I was there. I smelled the hay. I smelled all of this. Um, and the thing looked at me, had a crazy, just the most evil looking expression on his eyes, and his eyes were just glowing like white eyes. And I woke up in modern times and or whatever. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, geez, that was crazy. So after a minute, I kind of toss my legs off the bed, get ready to stand up. I go to stand up, my right leg gives out. I fall against the or almost fall into the what you call it, nightstand,
Right.
and I kind of stopped myself, like, whoa. And I sat back down. I was like, okay, well, maybe I've heard of people thinking that they're paralyzed and they wake up and they still think they're paralyzed,
Right.
or they think that they're blind and they have hysterical blindness. Even then, I had enough sense to know, well, maybe it's just okay. Wake up, Steve. Wake up.
Right.
Well, I'm sitting there and my leg's aching, so I'm rubbing my leg a little bit. And I look down there, and this is the thing that freaks me out. I had a pair of blue jogging pants on. Say jogging because I'm from Kentucky. We say wrestling here too, but I look around the area where I was jabbed with that core, and these are new jogging pants, and there's probably about the size of I'm trying to think of what would be like maybe a 10 penny nail. If you remember 10 penny nails at all,
Mm-hmm.
like the bigger headed nails.
Yeah, yeah.
About that size. It's weird because it's not exactly a tear. It's almost like it was a scorch, almost like it was. I can't explain it. And I
Really?
went, well, why did I hit that? Maybe I was like, oh, well, maybe there was a spring come out of the bed, or maybe, but it. And anyway, and I was like, that's really weird. And I talked to somebody who did regression,
Uh-huh.
and he said, well, do you have any sort of scoop or half moons or any of that? I said, not that I know. And he said, check behind your ears and this and that. And I'm not noticing anything, but that was extremely strange. But that was an isolated, as far as I know, isolated event. But
You only had that dream once?
yes, I mean, I've had displaced time dreams, but this is the 80s. Beastmaster was on television and all this stuff. Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm sure I've dreamed I was, Bonnie Man, but I'm not the Bonnie Man. I did do the no when I jumped off stuff, but that doesn't count. But that was really weird. But he said, well, what about animals? I was just, what do you mean? He said, did you have like certain encounters with certain things? I said, yeah. I said the only thing I can really think of, would have a lot of issues with owls.
Okay.
Like I used to deliver newspapers, and I would remember having them drop out of trees into the road in front of me. Just It's not
Really?
natural at all. Yeah, and I remember getting out of the car. I don't know why I got out of the car, but I remember getting out of the car and kind of checking it or going at it, and then it's almost like it sounds so nutty. It's not like someone said get in the car, but it was like I should go to the car. And I got back in my car and I just drove off, and the bird took off. It didn't make any sense. It didn't just like land. It like
Wow.
landed kind of with its wings spread and kind of like almost like it fell. And then and there's a time or two I'd be driving and I would be seeing a shadow. I'd be going across street lights, and I'd see like a shadow on my hood. I'm like, what is that? And I'd look, and there'd be a big owl flying over my car. Don't know what it is. Apparently I'm cool to owls. Owls dig me. I don't know,
It's
but
like, oh boy.
that it's. How do you explain that? I know I sound totally insane,
No, no, you
but
don't. You
it was.
don't. And I know what you mean. One thing you can chalk up to coincidence, like, okay, this can happen to anybody. But when it starts happening more than once and the odds on it start changing, you're like, okay, This is not a coincidence.
Well, I saw that movie Fourth Kind and scared the out of me, and because it's like, you want to get regressed? Nah, I don't know. I don't. I'd rather my spine not snap in half. Um, but then again, who knows, man? It might be some sort of I don't know. They might, it might be some
Maybe
sort of
that
Uncle
was
Bad
you in a
touch stuff
parallel
going on. Who knows
universe.
what's going on?
Maybe that was
Do
you
I?
in a parallel universe.
Well, I mean, I believe it's totally possible. I believe
I'm just that's like,
almost for sure.
I mean, there's people that think that maybe certain accounts of cryptids and or UFOs or ETs, maybe they're not necessarily from outer space as an intradimensionals, which is
Right.
why sometimes they're difficult to find after the fact. I mean,
Well, I mean,
that's one of the theories out there.
well, all that stuff with the Bigfoots and things. That's to me the scariest thing is what you didn't see,
Oh,
or what you just caught a glimpse of. Like we talked about stories, and I've had some people go, well, hey, why don't you get a hold of like, I don't know, was it like Travel Channel or some of these different little ones that have these different little haunted things?
mm-hmm.
And I was like, and do some of these stories. I'm like, first of all, I don't I don't want them to cheese it up. I don't want them to make it so maudlin and just
Yeah,
over the top. But people's gonna go, that's crap. You
yeah.
know, it's not even
Even though
like this or
truth many
that.
times is stranger than fiction, that's
Well, true. I mean, but it's just a thing that to me these are very personal to me because a lot of this stuff I've experienced
yeah.
and that's the hardest thing. Like when I put the first book out, I went like, like kissing your baby on the head, put them in the reed thing and push them down the Nile. Good luck. And then you're sitting there going, oh, how are people going to treat this thing? I know it
Yeah.
sounds so stupid, but
No,
you know, and,
I
and with the
totally get
second
it.
book, the Hauntings of the Western Lunatic Asylum, because it's so different, because there's some of these sad, some of these, there's got sadder elements too, because there's children involved. Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
Penitentiary book had children involved too, because they had
Hmm.
children locked down too.
Yeah.
And you lock somebody that stole a loaf of bread with a counterfeiter and like a triple homicide rapist, and they put them all in the same cells.
Let me tell you something. I did
No
research
classifications.
on there was a reform school up here in northern Florida in a town called Mariana. And this was, this was when you were not old enough to go to prison. They would send you to reform school. If you were like a juvenile that was like really out of control, or
Right.
uh, and it was like, and it was established like right around 1900. And like a lot of the things that they did back then, whether it was an asylum or prison, they would make them like a working farm. They were self-sustaining. Plus, they produced
Right.
uh,
The here we're gonna teach you character through hard labor,
air
and
through
and
hard
we'll
labor.
hopefully break that of you and give you an out, and if not,
Well, and the
you'll
thing
be heading
is
to
that
prison.
originally it was meant as a school, like really truly a school and it was even for boys and girls. And and usually it was meant for adolescents. The same thing like what you said, kids that were left either orphans. But what happened? First of all, the first thing that came across was like in what was it? I want to say it was 1917. They had a 6-year-old in there in reform school. And
See,
when I
that's insane.
and I came across this. I researched this. This is not like, and he ended up dying of malaria, like within a year of being there. And I was like, I researched a little bit and I looked at some of the records, and apparently it showed where his father was in the reform, for in the penitentiary here up there in Rayford. And I don't know what the mom, but sometimes that's the same thing that you would think. Well, obviously maybe there was nobody to care for this child, but how does the 6-year-old end up
Yeah, got to be a better option than that.
in
I
a
mean,
reform school? But that back then is what you were saying. Things like that did happen. As
right. Well,
difficult
there
as
was
it
no
is for us to believe it, it does. It did.
well, there was no safeguards. I mean, that's what I try to tell people. Um, Again, like I always say, full disclosure, we were, I guess, considered poor. Now I understand, like Kentucky, like the way we have, or say like, trying to think of something, like say food stamps or something like that.
Hmm.
Okay, we base our economic standings on what is considered national poverty level. If you
Okay.
make a dollar over national poverty level, you're a success story. Look at you. You don't need any help.
Right.
So once my mom split, we would get like the commodity cheese and the cans of this and that and
Mm-hmm.
the Donald Duck juice and all that. So I understand it, but thank God it was there. And that's why I'll try to explain to the kids, because I told them a little bit about my childhood, and they're just like, Jesus, Dad. And I was like, no, don't feel bad for me. I'm a lucky one.
Right.
I need kids that like living on dirt floors and catching anything they can to eat, and
Yes.
and then not all of them made it. So, but yeah, that was just again that grim reality that it's hard sometimes, and I'm not trying to be flippant and
Mm-hmm.
dismissive of
Right.
maybe like millennials, but I'm so old it's hard not to be. It's a thing of for somebody who's like their internet's out and they have a meltdown.
It's like, oh my God, it's the end of the
Right,
world.
because whatever their muffin is not this and that, or
Is that,
their
are we,
latte doesn't have.
what do they
I'm like,
call it? First world problems?
first world. I use that all the time, and I do that too. I'm sitting there and I'm like,
I know that.
well, I have some books ordered for my son, and they're not here. Oh my God, how am I going to make it? I got to
Wow.
write a mad blog about it.
Yeah.
But
Let me tell you, I tell everybody, I mean, I was born and raised here in Miami, and, here it's not only hot, it's very humid. And I remember when I grew up, we finally, we got the AC units in our bedrooms, and we would turn them on at night, but the rest of the time, you had on a fan.
yeah, well, most people would even have an air conditioner, and they call them alligator or AC units, where it would suck out the air through the ceiling, like in the attic, if you had
Yeah,
an attic, and it
right.
would like pull
Well,
in cool air and blow out the hot.
well, I mean, the house that we lived in originally, they built it like with a really thick wall so it would stay cool. But what I'm saying is, I wasn't hurting. Now you take air
Oh,
conditioning away from me, and
exactly.
I become a crybaby. Oh, it's so hot.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing too. Like I told you, is when we were small, because Dad grew up like super rough, and Mom, was kind of similar stuff. I mean, her family was a lot closer than my father's were, because I have like uncles and cousins that I don't know anything about them. It was just like
Yeah.
they didn't. Maybe because my granddad was a convict, but it probably had something to do with it. But like I told him, growing up with maybe a fan in the window. Let me ask you this. I'm laughing because I was talking to my friend again that lives out in Arizona, and my kids. It's so funny. If you've ever seen like the George Lopez show, and he
Uh-huh.
talks about how he was raised, and they said like, you're like a white George Lopez, and I'm like, no, I'm not. But they would say, I said we used to play a game, and it was called Who's Gonna Keep the Pillow, because we didn't have enough pillows. You let whoever fell asleep first. Hey man, you're on your own. Boom, that
That's
pillow would
right.
we'll
Uh,
put a coat, slide it under your head. If you're lucky, you'll wake up, your neck's craned off the bed, and
yeah.
whoever went to sleep last, they're flunking in school, but they got some good rest. I
Yeah.
mean, so I try to tell them that. So the whole thing with the paranormal, which 180 degrees from that, um, that is just weird icing on the cake. You know, I notice more when I do interviews. Again, I just touch on everything because why not, right? As long as it's something that's not disrespectful or whatever, because sometimes it ties in, because people will kind of go, well, sometimes if you go, look, don't want to be big headed, because of number one thing, I have no reason to be, but it's a thing of going, look, I said, well, I see where you try to hold to that humble thing, and I said, I'm not trying to fake it. I'm just, there's no reason not to be. Why not? I come from nothing, and so I mean, try to treat everybody the same, and even people that had all really great stuff that can be gone in 5 minutes. So
Yes.
if you got family, you got love, you got, which don't get me wrong, I mean, man, 20, I got 23 years in. Pray for me. I love her to death, and I think she loves me to death. But there's some days it's just like,
Yeah, of
I love
course.
you, but I got to stay outside. I just got to like not be in this room for 5 minutes. And I think that's actually healthier than not talking.
Oh, of course.
Especially when you're a family that has, special needs kids and this and that. Then you also work together doing paranormal stuff, which she, especially when our son died. I don't want to get too deep into it because it's her business, but once our son died, it was hard for her to go especially in anything that had to do with children that had passed.
Yeah, I could see how.
It's still very knee jerk,
Mm-hmm.
and I had that too. But I think, and this is going to sound sexist because I guess it is, men compartmentalize. I think a little bit more
Yeah.
because I think society expects us to. And you know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong.
Well,
I mean, mom don't get a day off. You're absolutely right. Mom can't be sick. You're absolutely right. But if dad ain't providing, dad's not bringing home that bacon.
well,
No one even has to say anything to him because he's going to feel bad. He's going to beat himself up.
right.
So that's that thing.
But you
That's
know
why.
what? You know what, Steve? One of the things that, um, and I think it sounds very trite, but I think it's very true, and it's love don't pay the rent.
No,
Okay,
you're right.
and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
and that's really you love your kid or you love your family. Saying it
right.
is not going to do it when they need to be taken care of. And
No, well, I
that's
mean, well, that's what I try to tell my girls is because they've got a thing. They love every light in the house on. This has nothing to do with the books, but they love to have all the lights on. And I was like, guys, this, that's change. I'm just hearing change hit the floor when you leave them on in every room and all the time. And like you said, it's kisses and rainbows doesn't make the world move. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not a money nut because my father was extremely money oriented.
mm,
And I think that's one of those flip flops. Like if you have an extremely conservative dad, you're very liberal, or
right,
vice versa. Uh, but I was just like, look, money's not the number one thing, but if you want to keep staying in a house, or you want
sure,
to keep riding around in that car, we got to pay our insurance, we got to pay this and that. So,
exactly.
and I think that is again something that's just called, it's just a different time, But
Oh, of
I don't know.
course. I mean, it's and you know what? And again, even though we're talking about the paranormal, it's almost like yeah, a backdrop or backstory to what goes on, even if, whether you're a paranormal author and or a paranormal researcher. Okay, it's like you still have to live your life and with your family and with what's going on around you. And in some cases, you had the loss of two children, but you know, but
But
some people.
some people lost all their kids. Some people never had their children,
Hmm.
so or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm looking at the positives and being thankful for what we have, and we're pretty blessed. And it's so fun. And like I said, I know it sounds so goofy when I say that, but and I'm not trying to give you lip service. It's just how you got to be about it, and um, it's just yeah, like you said, it's just one of those weird things, and what you come through determines not necessarily who you are, how you cope, digest whatever different stimuli that you have through your build up to whatever determines sometimes how you cope with it is who you are, what kind of person you are. Um, just like in the paranormal stuff, I might have been a different kind of person. I may have been more of one of those come at me bro guys if I was raised in sort of a different thing. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, but it's one of those things, and I don't have any problems with that individual. I'm like, come on, man, please stop. Um, but for you to have a truly legitimate paranormal show, it would be three-quarters of it would be people either in lawn chairs in a graveyard or sitting up here and there, back and forth. There may be like a little drama about like, well, why does she always want to do the EVPs? I can do it too, or
A
this and
little
that, or
paradrama.
paradrama, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever. And then maybe you catch something, and if not, then the last 15, 20 minutes of people sitting and listening to EVPs and going, did you hear? No, okay. What did you think it was? And then you're arguing. Oh, I think it said, "Give me the cup," and then I said, I hicked up, and then I said, "Who's Chuck? Where do you get who in that?" Oh my God, so no, that kind of goofy stuff. That's reality. I want to see a true to life paranormal
Yeah,
show, and it's almost
exactly.
like this is Spinal Tap, but for ghost hunters.
Yeah,
I want to
exactly.
correct that, but
Let me tell you something. That would be very refreshing to
well,
actually,
you know,
because that it is what it is. It's not like, yeah, it's almost like people sometimes think that if you're a paranormal investigator or researcher, you're like exempt from all the things that normal people have to do. It's not really. You just have to carve out time for this.
No, and
Uh,
that's the thing. It's you know, I'm new to this whole book thing, and I ain't getting rich on this thing at all. I mean, I'm thankful for the people that's buying the books, but I'm saying, I mean, I'm not looking at a house in Vale. I don't even know where Vale's at, but I've heard people say my house in Vale. I think it's California, right?
Colorado, I
See, I
think.
would have been in the wrong state. It started with a C. I was close,
I think I'm not
but
even sure myself, to be honest with you. But I know I know what you're saying as far as a reference to Vale.
you hear what I'm saying? But yeah, and something too, and this is true of raising children. This is true of a love of an event or a love of a hobby. Like I told my girls, um, I am not like, okay, you remember me as a small child. I was at a certain point in my life, knowing how to raise children or not knowing how to raise children. I am now not that same man who I was. I will not be the same man when I'm a granddad. You're going
Sure.
to be going, wait a minute, they're letting him or her running around do this in the living room. Man, I could never do that. It's a grandkid. We're
Yeah, of
worn down by
course, of
life.
course.
We're going to let them get away with things, and we're going to spoil them rotten, and we're going to send
And
them
that's
home to
right,
you
because
with
then you're going to take them home and you're the one that's
right.
responsible.
And then you get that, and you get that curse of going, I hope today, one day, that you have a
Yeah.
child that acts like you, and that curse comes true. My mom said it, and by God, I got it.
There
But
you
they're
go.
good kids. They're working through college and doing things like that, and God bless them. But it's one of those things that, people. Okay, you ever seen those paintings where it's either like an old lady or it's like it's a skull or it's a lady
Yes, right. Yeah,
standing
that that,
in
that
like an
optical
arch.
illusion.
Yeah, and neither one of them is right, neither one of them is wrong. It's your perception and
Hmm.
what you're bringing to that point of your life. And I think that I especially like say with EVPs and things, I listen to them differently now.
Yes.
Because when we first got into it, it was. I think we officially the name of my thing is the Caldwell County Paranormals. I didn't want to call it the Caldwell County Ghost Hunter,
Hmm.
Caldwell County Spook Chaser, Booger Wrangler, any of that jazz. I'm not wrangling nothing. We're interested in the paranormal. There's more than one of us paranormals. It covers a wider array of different paranormal things and
Right.
whatever. Um, but when we first got into it, we had, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, we had like matching shirts and things more, and like black with yellow lettering, and it was, it wasn't tabs, but it's pretty close to tabs,
Uh,
because that was the preeminent show, and that
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
oh, I guess that's what
Mm,
we do. But
right.
by still reading, I was like, well, some of it I believe, some of it I don't. Some of this doesn't really go with some of the things that I feel was
Hmm.
right, and you find your own niche in it. But you know, I can't roll that way now because I feel ridiculous. Not that they can do it's fine, but
Yeah.
I don't want to try to ape someone else's thing. That's why we don't do a lot of. Okay, do you ever do a lot of stuff with like the REM pods and the voice thingamajiggies?
I've joined some group. No, not joined. I've always considered myself a freelance, which means I still do. I work with a research foundation that does the whole state of Florida. But I always sometimes, after you've been doing this for as long as I have, you get asked by a lot of groups to help them out, to give them a hand. So
Right.
usually, if there's a REM pod, it's their REM pod, is what I'm
Right.
trying to get to.
Yeah.
I'm stuck to the basics.
Right. And that's the worst thing ever because God forbid somebody. I mean, no one's going to want to sponsor me, but maybe like AA or something if I ever decide to go that way. But I'm like, our rods we made ourselves.
Hmm.
We kept it really simple. We used basic recording equipment, temperature
Right.
gauges, EMF meters.
Right.
We do have noise or not noise detectors, motion detectors. Do you ever seen what people have them in places? Do
As
you know how
far
much
as
those things are?
no, I haven't. No,
More than I need to spend. Like
I
some 50, 70, 80, $90. You're gonna laugh at me, and that's okay because I laugh at me too. Um, I would go during Halloween to Dollar Tree. If they want to back me, feel free. I shop there all the time. Dollar Tree, and you remember those little Halloween, those little ghosts and those witches that you go past it and it goes off. I know it
Yeah, right.
sounds
They got the
dumb.
motion detector. Yeah.
They got a motion detector in them,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say, okay, put the witch on the front door, put the ghost on the back door.
Uh-huh.
Boo, back door. B, both sorts of the B. So if we set it up and something breaks it, we go, something's happening by the front door.
Yeah.
That is very, very, what I'm thinking of, like almost hee-haw-ish, goofy-ish, but you know what? It works. And
Surf.
you know what? If it gets broken or gets
Yeah.
stomped on, man, I'm out of buck. I guess I'm gonna have to
Yeah. It's like,
go to
oh,
the bank and get another buck. I
yeah.
mean, and like I said
Exactly.
again, that's part of the extremely DIY vibe I come to with it.
Right.
There's
And
no,
that's the thing. I think that I'm not going to say all because there's pieces of equipment that I understand, but a lot of it sometimes I think is priced not so much on really what it is, as in it's been touted as the thing you
yeah,
must have if you're
yeah,
a serious ghost
right.
hunter.
Or it's
So,
got look at all these lights on it. Look at all
yeah,
this, and it
exactly.
pops and whistles, and and that was fine. I had a lot of little toys like that when I was a kid and stuff, but we're trying to put to quantify something that I think supersedes and or not supersedes, just goes beyond physical laws as we know it. Or they may be the actual physical laws, but we're just not there yet. I think a lot of it has to do with a certain vibrational frequency that humans are on at the point. And I know it sounds kind of hippy dippy.
Hmm.
I think once we raise our vibrational levels and ascend to like was it a class 1 civilization, class 2, I was sounding a little Star Trekky, but once we can get past some of that goofy infighting and all that, start the national anthem behind me as I'm talking. But no, I mean, we can come together as global people and still keep our individuality, but not be able to see beyond what we're seeing, because it's that whole, don't worry about the man behind the curtain, look over here. As long as we're not able to focus any more than we're able to, I don't know when and if we'll ever be able to do that. But that's the thing is, like at least with equipment anyway, it's like, oh well, this is this because this is how ghosts show up, and this is how. Well, we don't know that. We don't even know if they're ghosts.
Oh,
You
right.
know, and
Yeah, no, this is a lot of it's a lot of theories, some stronger than others, but you know.
well, I mean, I've had people just like roll their eyes at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world. That's a nice Kentucky word, idiot. Idiot in the world, and I'm like, buddy, you walk around in matching caps, and come on, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you find something and you can keep showing it and keep doing it. I studied criminal justice, believe it or not, and if you it doesn't show, but I swear to God I did. And if you're going by the scientific method, you have to be able to reproduce the same
Exactly.
phenomenon under different situations and different whatever. And if you
Hmm.
have a control test or whatever,
Exactly.
that's fine. But to be able to show a constant return of the same whatever with the same input, then you can go, oh well, that lends some credence to this
Yeah.
theory.
Hmm.
But you have people go, but no, so and so does this, or I took this. Uh, I'm rubbing my temples because I'm giving myself a headache. There's these people that will give classes, and there's nothing wrong with going, hey, we will teach you the basics of ghost hunting.
Exactly.
That's nice. That's cool. That's great. That's admirable. But when it's like, hey, and you know what? You take this for, however many $100s, you'll get a certificate. You're a real ghoster. It's got a
Yay.
sticker and everything, and I'm like, first of all, I don't really need their approval,
Right.
because it's sort of like, you see that sky? It's all mine. I'm pretty sure it's not all yours. But and there's some people maybe feel better about it. Maybe it gives them a certain amount of what am I looking for? A certain man, I'm trying to word this right. Confidence,
Right.
because it's like I can come say something to you that might be true medically, But if a guy, good looking guy comes out from like Grey's Anatomy and says, yes, this such and such, you're going, oh doc, I'm with you. Now I believe it because he said it.
Yeah, the
Um,
authority figure.
yes, and people, as much as they say they don't want that, they want that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm kind of the worst. I was always like you talked about being parts of teams. Took me a long time to want to start a team because
Mm-hmm.
it was that whole, any team that would, any club that would have me, I don't want to be a member of type of thing. I was the kid that would always help build the clubhouse, but I didn't want to be a part of it. I was happy to help build it, but I don't want to deal with the freaky rules or whatever you got going on. I think I'm a little bit too much of a libertine, and I don't do well in society.
Yeah.
To a point.
I know what you mean. The hierarchy thing is not for you.
No, I'm very anti-hive mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really kind of not that guy.
I
'Cause
totally
like I said,
understand.
it's real easy to go too far with that. There's camaraderie, and there's guys and groups and other writers that are of the same mindset,
Right.
more or less, like almost call them literary anarchists, are, but in a good way. They're not blowing anything up, but they're just going, we don't know anything, but we're going to go into it and see what we can find out. That, to me, that is discovery. That is
Sure.
that is true science. I mean, as goofy as some of the stuff I've said, I do have a component of that in my heart. Because otherwise, why do it? Why fake it?
Well, I think some people, also there's more ego in it than there is the want or the desire for discovery or true discovery or true. It's more about what's going to get a lot of attention.
Well,
Even if it's not that accurate.
well, and I have to be forthright enough to say, you want people to like what you do.
Oh, of course.
You want, all the years that I, played music and stuff like that, if people were booing at you and throwing a beer bottle past your head, that kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 2 or 3 people clapping, you feel like you're 10 foot tall and king of the world. First time I had someone ask me for a signature, which is so weird, on my book, and I'm like, who sent you? This has got to be a gag. What's the joke?
Yeah.
Like, who do I sign it to? You suck as a writer. Oh, okay, thanks. I get the joke. But everyone wants to be appreciated for what they do and or what they're trying to do. I think it's just everyone wants to be accepted, but it's one of those horrible. It's catch-22. Like I think a lot of artists are, if I can use that with a small a.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be accepted, but then when you are, it's like you're trying to catch a tiger by the tail, to use that old expression.
Yes.
Well, you got it. What now? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't ever think I'd get here. It's like why Cowley finally catches the Roadrunner. It's like, now what? He doesn't know what to do. So, and that's very minor, but it's super sweet because, like a lot of my readers, and I think readers in general probably are female. A lot of them are female, like soccer moms, or maybe even a little older. There's some, a few younger ones. Most of them are kind of from that time, because I will talk about things that, especially in the penitentiaries or different places, or whatever, that touch on times they grew up through.
Mm-hmm. That they're familiar with.
Right, and it's not like I'm not trying to do cutting edge, hip, whatever, and some agenda, and I don't have time for that. But yeah, people have been sweet about it so far. I'm really curious how they're going to take this book, because it's kind of melancholy. There's some really spooky, like criminally insane type characters in here, but there's also some really, really sad. I wrote it. I was glad I got done with it, because I'm like, geez, I can't write any more about this horrible story.
Huh?
No, not that the story was bad, but it affected me.
The characters.
Yeah, because I connect with these stories, and because like I told you, a lot of times it might be X amount of people had different experiences in it, so you combine it, so it makes the story really strong, and
Exactly.
and so it stands out. So but anyway, but yeah, we'll see what people take of it and make of it, and
Well, You know what? It has been fantastic talking to you, Steve, and I'm looking forward. When are your books going to come out? This year at all, or when do you have any idea of when they're going to be
Yes,
published?
and I will tell you this real quick. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a web page, and
Yes.
it's Steve with another E, like Steve, like basically like Steve with two E's at the end, like
Mm-hmm.
STEVEE Asher.com. No, it's all lowercase and together, and you can get like links to the books for that there. But if you go to like Amazon, you go to Simon and Schuster. I'm through Permuted, but they go through Simon and Schuster for distribution. You can get it at
Well,
Books a
I
Million.
am putting a link on the credits of the show also, as far as that it's going to go to your website. But I'm glad anyway that you're
Cool.
mentioning it for the people that are hearing the podcast version. As far as that's your, like you said, your website, steveeasher.com.
Right. Which everybody, because half the people that knew me would go, so it's Stevie Asher? Not, no, it's not. It's not. It's not with IE
Right.
like when I was 5. It's Steve with another E Asher.com. But as of the books, the first book's out. The first book's been out since late part of last year, and the Hauntings of Western Lunatic Asylum came out just this last month, and so Hauntings of Kentucky State Penitentiary's been out for a year, and the other one's been out for about a month.
Okay.
Uh, and so, of course, right now I'm trying to slam through as many little or not little shows necessarily, but shows and
And the ones
whatever
that you're
radio
working
stuff.
on, are they going to be out I mean, at all this year, or?
Honestly, I'm gonna need to talk to those guys because I'm one of these guys that, with it being scary books, I kind of like to try to do them around Halloween.
Yeah.
I'd rather not let them out right in spring, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe they seem to sell better in spring. Maybe people get ready to go in the summer. They want some books to read.
Yes.
But as of now, I'm not sure. I think the way it's going to happen, the next book will come out in 2019. The last of the 4 will come out in 2020, and the books that I'm writing on now will come out after that. And unless I decide to release them more than one at a time, or if I, like you talked about self-publishing, there's some stuff I could do self-publishing, but
Right.
I try to keep the paranormal stuff with Permuted right now. We'll see how that goes. But if I can say, the House of Asher on YouTube,
Yes.
check it out and leave a
Absolutely.
comment. And like I said, it's just kind of like this, but
I-
maybe even goofier than me talking
You'll
goofier.
be you'll be getting a new subscriber, as in me.
Awesome. I need that. I'm trying to get up to, they got a thing to where I think you have to have like 100 subscribers to do live stream.
Oh yes,
Or
that.
I
And you know
think
what?
I've,
They're really weird. They do say that, but uh, it's really funny. You take a survey or two, or you contact them, and they're pretty cool. I think they let you go before that. I guess they just put in
okay.
sometimes as a little bit of a safety catch
Well,
in
you
case
don't know
somebody
what the
does something crazy.
content is, and they get in there early and throw out stuff like, no, you need to know what is content safe. Well,
Right.
if I can say two more things,
Sure.
um, I am doing some shirts that's connected to like stories in the book
Okay.
and in the different books, and they're haunting us shirts, and that's through like Posh Embroidery on Facebook. It's in Princeton. Posh,
Okay.
like POSH, and if it's okay, we do have one. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. We do have one. What you call it? Backer supporter. Allers Oddities out of Paducah, who's actually gave me a lot of the weird spooky stuff I've got here that
Really?
drives my
Isn't
wife
that
nuts.
great?
Oh, he's really cool. He does a lot of like redone like dolls and things like that. And he had
Okay.
sent me something that come from H. Holmes's house. It was some of his flatware.
Okay.
Right? Just weird, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's something strange to have, but
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
anyway. But no, but I really do appreciate you having me on,
No,
and
absolutely. My pleasure.
I know it's kind of like trying to hold on to like a jacked up bull on cocaine or something running down a hallway or something. I'm all over the place, but I do appreciate you being so kind and gentle to
No,
me today.
absolutely. It was wonderful. It was great. And I look forward, like I said, I'll be one of your next subscribers, and also, not only your existing books, but the new books, because you're definitely a storyteller. And I mean that in a positive way. Not in, I don't want you to think absolutely an excellent storyteller.
Well, I do appreciate it.
Take care.
You too, ma'am. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right, guys. So, what did you think? Well, you know what? This story, this I'm gonna have to break up this interview into two parts, and you'll probably realize it by the time you see this part, because this will be at the end, which will be the end of part two because of the length of the interview. But it's a fascinating interview because, again, yes, he's an author and he's a paranormal researcher. But if you listen to his story about about his prior life, when I mean his prior life, as in before he started writing the books and did a bunch of the paranormal research, yeah, he had, like a lot of the people that I've interviewed, they have had a childhood experience or things like that, and it's almost like where we discussed it even before we started recording, where some of the experiences that he has as a kid, which, man, that thing in the doorway, holy crap. Some people, it's either pushes them towards interest in the paranormal as an adult, or they run in the other direction. Everybody's different. Some people is like, this is it. Once that shift in their reality happens, it's like, I I want to pretend I never saw this, and they retreat. And then you get other people like Steve who said, I'm scared. I'm really scared, but I want to conquer this fear and I want to find out more about it. And then, of course, you play out your life. I mean, there's always more than one thing going on in our lives. And obviously, he grew up and did his thing, and now he's a husband and a father, and he still did what he did. And, and I wasn't kidding, because a lot of times people will see these shows of paranormal investigators and they think that, obviously, if you've got a TV show, you've got a TV show, and basically this is what's paying your bills, and everything that comes with it. But in truth, the majority of, I want to say it and I don't care, the true ghost hunters, the true paranormal investigators, which are the groups that are out there across the United States, which are manned by professionals. And when I mean professionals, I don't mean necessarily professionals as in what you do, as in people that are professionals in what they do as investigators, which is what their code of conduct is with clients, whoever. Those are the true ones. But my point being that all these people, I think everybody that I've interviewed, myself included, you don't charge anything. You're lucky if you have a client that, if you're traveling, will give you some gas money. But you don't ask for money, and sometimes people can. A lot of times they can't. So what I'm saying is that when you are, this really is something that you like to do. You do it and you persist even at while your regular life is happening, and you have a full-time job, and you have a family, and you have other obligations. Um, in other words, that's the reality of this. And and if you have the persistence, which, by the way, I hope you, then you go ahead and you do what he's doing. He wrote a book. He's got two, and he's got a lot more percolating up here, which is great. But, and I say this because there's a lot of people out there that say, "Oh, I don't have time," or "I'm too complicated." If you listen to what he's saying, and you could tell, you know, he has uh he has special needs children, and he's even lost one, and he was working. Let's face it. I imagine that job, being a guard for in maximum security prison, that carried a lot of stress. I'm positive of that. And this guy still went ahead and researched and wrote his books. So I think, I mean, and I'm saying this for those people that are interested or wanting to become paranormal investigators. Uh, it's, you need to look beyond the hype of what you see on TV and figure out, which, by the way, he pointed out, if, and I know some In other words, don't fall for a course on ghost hunting. Forget it. It's a waste of money. It is. It really truly is. If you want to read some books and you read, that a little bit about it, if you're really unfamiliar with it, and your best bet is if see if you can find a group. I know some groups will even take people, you know, or if you can join a group and not start a group, not start one, join one. Like I said, look for a group that's been around for a little bit. In other words, they've gotten rid of the paradrama and they're really gelled and know what they're doing. And join them, and then figure out: do I really like this? Am I really scared? Is it really boring? It's not what I thought it was going to be, or I'm really into it. But yeah, you know, save your money. Don't join a that's a waste of money. Because like I said before, if you really like it and if you really are into it and you really understand what are the risks sometimes that are involved because of something that you might come across, if you understand all of that, uh, there's nothing as in field work, like in all things that have to do with research, field work, going out there, going out to meet people, going to different scenarios, following instructions, putting together, you know, working within a team, all those things. It's very interesting. But yeah, I'm glad he pointed that out. Anyway, I think he's a super 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 interesting author. Definitely has got materials. I think his, between what he gets people to tell him like that. Oh my God. And and I'm sure his own writing abilities. I'm sure he's got quite a few books that eventually he's going to put out. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this. Like I said, I'm going to have part one and part two of this interview. And please, true believers, don't forget to send me your stories. Go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Go to the Submit Your Story tab and let me hear your true ghost story. Also, subscribe to us so you get notified whenever we release a show, whether it's on YouTube or whether you're catching a podcast version on any of the different platforms that we release a show on. And again, thank you so very much for your time and for being part of my audience because, like I say before, and I will always say, I think you are all wonderful. Take care, guys.